Going beyond the reason. Late I learned that when reason died, then wisdom was born. Before that liberation, I had only knowledge. Sri Aurobindo, Thoughts and Aphorisms. The mother says, once again, I must repeat that the form of these aphorisms is purposely paradoxical in order to give the mind a little shock and awaken it enough for it to make an effort to understand. One must not take this aphorism literally. Some people seem to be worried by the idea that reason must disappear for one to become wise. It is not that. It is not that at all. Reason must no longer be the summit and the master. For a very long time in life, until one possesses anything resembling knowledge, it is indispensable that reason be the master. Otherwise, one is the plaything of one's impulses, one's fancies, one's more or less disordered emotional imaginings, and one is in danger of being very far removed, not merely from wisdom, but even from the knowledge needed for conducting oneself acceptably. But when one has managed to control all the lower parts of the being with the help of reason, which is the apex of the ordinary human intelligence, then, if one wants to go beyond this point, if one wants to liberate oneself from ordinary life, from ordinary thought, from the ordinary vision of things, one must, if I may say so, stand upon the head of reason, not trampling it down disdainfully, but using it as a stepping stone to something higher, something beyond it, to attain to something which concerns itself very little with the decrees of reason, something which can allow itself to be irrational because it is a higher irrationality, with a higher light, something which is beyond ordinary knowledge, and which receives its inspirations from above, from high above, from the divine wisdom. That is what it means. As for the knowledge of which Sri Aurobindo speaks here, it is ordinary knowledge. It is not knowledge by identity. It is knowledge that can be acquired by the intellect through thought, through ordinary means. But once again, and in any case, we shall have occasion to return to this when we study the next aphorism. Do not be in a hurry to abandon reason in the conviction that you will immediately attain to wisdom, because you must be ready for wisdom. Otherwise, by abandoning reason, you run a great risk of falling into unreason, which is rather dangerous. Many times in his writings, particularly the Synthesis of Yoga, Sri Aurobindo warns us against the imaginings of those who believe they can do sadhana without rigorous self-control, and who heed all sorts of inspirations, which lead them to a dangerous imbalance, where all their repressed, hidden, secret desires come out into the open under the pretense of liberation from ordinary conventions and ordinary reason. One can be free only by soaring to the heights, high above human passions. Only when one has achieved a higher, selfless freedom, and done away with all desires and impulses, does one have the right to be free. But neither should people who are very reasonable, very moral according to ordinary social laws, think themselves wise, for their wisdom is an illusion, and holds no profound truth. One who would break the law must be above the law. One who would ignore conventions must be above conventions. One who would despise all rules must be above all rules. And the motive of this liberation should never be a personal, egoistic one, the desire to satisfy an ambition, aggrandize one's personality through a feeling of superiority out of contempt for others, to set oneself above the herd and regard it with condescension. Be on your guard when you feel yourself superior, and look down on others ironically, as if to say, I am no longer made of such stuff. That's when you go off the track, and you are in danger of falling into an abyss. When one truly attains wisdom, the true wisdom, the wisdom Sri Aurobindo is speaking of here, there is no longer higher and lower. There is only a play of forces in which each thing has its place and its importance. And if there is a hierarchy, it is a hierarchy of surrender to the Supreme, It is not a hierarchy of superiority with regard to what is below. And with human understanding, human reason, human knowledge, one is unable to discern this hierarchy. Only the awakened soul can recognize another awakened soul, and then the sense of superiority disappears completely. True wisdom comes only when the ego disappears, and the ego disappears only when you are ready to abandon yourself completely to the Supreme Lord, without any personal motive and without any expectation of profit, when you do it because you cannot do otherwise. From the Mother, on Thoughts and Aphorisms.